قبل 3 أشهر محلها تحلى 13.
Good afternoon. You're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Linda Tamim, and these are today's headlines. Free Patriotic Movement chief MP Michel Aoun vows to continue his movement's mission to combat corruption in Lebanon during an FBM rally commemorating the events of October 13th of 1990. Thousands of people attend a rally in Ankara under heavy security to remember the people killed in twin bombings in the Turkish capital on Saturday. And Israel's government is facing serious questions over its use of force in the latest outbreak of violence with protesters after a number of videos appeared online showing soldiers shooting at Palestinians. Free Patriotic Movement chief MP Michel Aoun has vowed to continue his movement's mission to combat corruption in Lebanon, blaming the political class for the country's problems. He declared that those manipulating the parliamentary elections and hindering other national obligations will pay the price for their actions. He made his declaration during an FPM rally near the presidential palace in Babda, commemorating the events of October 13th of 1990. The problem we face today is that we are being governed by the same officials who were ruling on October 13th, 1990, Aoun said, as he demanded the adoption of an electoral law based on proportionality, saying it is the only option for the country. Addressing the issue of the prolonged presidential vacuum, Aoun said his party did not want a consensual president who will divide Lebanon to appease greedy officials, but would rather have a neutral head of state. Former President Michel Sleiman said his conscience was relieved after he managed to thwart a settlement over military promotions, viewed as the key to reactivating parliament and the government, long stalled by the presidential stalemate. He downplayed the results of his stances, underlining that such a deal would have undermined the rights of Christians and tear the remaining prerogatives of the head of state. Sleiman said Brigadier General Shamel Ru'uz, MP Michel Aoun's son-in-law, was a good general, but there are other generals just like him. Ru'uz, who has been at the center of a heated debate over high-level security appointments, is set to retire on October 15th. Sleiman lashed out at the Free Patriotic Movement, accusing the party of obstruction and pointing fingers at others. Army Commander General Jean Ahwaji on Thursday appointed Brigadier General Maroun Koubeyati as the new head of the Army Commando Unit, replacing Ru'uz. 3 people were wounded in an armed dispute between bulldozer drivers working on the side of a planned sanitary landfill in the Akkar village of Srar and the residents of nearby areas. The national news agency says the dispute occurred after the residents... Welcome back. Thousands of people have attended a rally in Ankara under heavy security to remember the people killed in twin bombings in the Turkish capital. The demonstrators filled Şehriye Square in central Ankara, close to the site of Saturday's blast outside the city's train station, which killed at least 95 people. The rally was called by labor unions, leftist groups, NGOs, and pro-Kurdish People's Democratic Party, the same groups that had called the peace rally targeted in Saturday's attack. Several demonstrators blamed President Recep Tayyip Erdogan for the bombings, shouting "Erdogan murder, government resign, and the state will give account." The government has ridiculed suggestions it could be implicated in the bombings. President Erdogan denounced what he called a heinous attack targeting Turkey's unity and its peace, declaring 3 days of mourning on Saturday. Turkish Prime Minister Ahmet Davutoglu said there were strong signs that the attack was carried out by 2 suicide bombers. Israel's government is facing serious questions over its use of force in the latest outbreak of violence with protesters after a number of videos appeared online showing soldiers shooting at Palestinians. Amnesty International says some of the recorded incidents amounted to extrajudicial killings, while Human Rights Watch said it was strongly concerned by Israel's indiscriminate and even deliberate use of fire on demonstrators. More details in this report.
A Palestinian woman detonated an explosive in her car at a checkpoint in the West Bank, injuring an Israeli soldier and herself. The West Bank blast attack marks the first use of explosives in the current round of violence following a series of stabbing and shooting attacks. Police spokesman Mickey Rosenfeld said the police officer noticed the woman driving suspiciously and mentioned her to stop. She chanted, "God is great," and detonated a bomb. It was also unclear if she intended it to be a suicide attack. According to photos distributed by police, the bomb did not appear especially powerful, with the car still intact after the blast. Meanwhile, in Gaza, an Israeli airstrike killed a pregnant woman and her toddler. The sharp escalation led to mounting fears that Palestinian unrest was tumbling toward a wider uprising or a third intifada. After days of unrest elsewhere, Gaza has been drawn into the violence since Friday, with clashes along the border leaving 9 Palestinians dead, including teenagers from Israeli fire. Overnight, Israel said it targeted 2 Hamas weapon manufacturing facilities after Gaza militants fired 2 rockets and following attempts by Palestinians to violently cross the border. While Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu and President Mahmoud Abbas have sought to avoid an escalation, frustrated Palestinians' youth have defied efforts to restore calm. The violence has drawn deep international concern, and Abbas as well as Netanyahu have spoken with U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, each putting the blame for the situation on the other. Netanyahu said he told Kerry he expected the Palestinian Authority to stop its wild and mendacious incitement, which is causing the current wave of terrorism. Abbas said he reiterated the need for Israeli authorities to stop giving cover to settler provocations carried out under the army's protection. At a meeting where Netanyahu convened his cabinet, he said that the violence was incited by Hamas, the Palestinian Authority, and the Islamic movement in Israel. His interior minister told the media on the sidelines of the cabinet meeting that the government was considering rescinding the citizenship and residency of Palestinians living in East Jerusalem.
And still in the Middle East, Iraqi security forces claim to have struck the convoy of Islamic State group leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi in an airstrike near the country's border with Syria. Security forces say his health status is unknown. Sources have previously alleged that Baghdadi had been injured or killed in strikes in the past, but the claims were either never verified or later denied. Today's statement was released by the War Media Cell, a structure which provides updates on the war against ISIS and speaks for the Interior and Defense Ministries as well as the paramilitary Popular Mobilization Forces. The statement said Iraqi aircraft struck Baghdadi's convoy as it was moving towards Karbala to attend a meeting of the Daesh terrorist leaders. It said the operation was conducted in coordination with Iraq's Interior Ministry Intelligence Services and the Joint Operation Command Center, which includes military advisors from the U.S.-led coalition. The Duke and Duchess of Cambridge have met with young people suffering from mental illness on the occasion of World Mental Health Day. The royal couple visited Harrow College in northwest London and heard the stories of former patients who now volunteer to help others battling with diseases such as depression, anxiety, and bipolarism. Princess Kate is said to have been visibly moved after hearing the story of a 19-year-old who suffered from depression. The patient is now a young volunteer at the anti-stigma campaign Time to Change and explained how she was told to kill herself by an online forum. She said her depression was diagnosed when she was just 12 years old and has been sectioned several times in the past. And across the Atlantic, U.S. President Barack Obama has poked a little fun at rapper Kanye West for saying he planned to run for the White House and offered some tongue-in-cheek advice on how to achieve a successful political career. Let's hear him.
A little bit later, you're going to hear from a guy who I hear has been talking about launching a potential political career. You may have heard about this. Kanye is thinking about running for Speaker of the House. I couldn't get any stranger. But in case Kanye is serious about this whole POTUS thing, or as he calls it, PZ, I do have advice for him. There's some stuff that I've picked up on the way. First of all, you've got to spend a lot of time dealing with some strange characters who behave like they're on a reality TV show. So you've got to be cool with that. Love you too. Second, this is a second important tip. Saying that you have a beautiful, dark, twisted fantasy. That's what's known as off message in politics. You can't say something like that. There are a lot of people who've lost their congressional seats saying things like that. You don't do that. That's number 2. And number 3, do you really think that this country is going to elect a black guy from the south side of Chicago with a funny name to be president of the United States? That is crazy. That's crazy. I love you, San Francisco. Let's get to work.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a recap of our top stories. Free Patriotic Movement Chief MP Michel Aoun vows to continue his movement's mission to combat corruption in the country during an FPM rally commemorating the events of October 13th, 1990. Thousands of people attend a rally in Ankara under heavy security to remember the people killed in twin bombings in the Turkish capital on Saturday. And Israel's government is facing serious questions over its use of force in the latest outbreak of violence with protesters after a number of videos appeared online showing soldiers shooting at Palestinians. Those are your top stories for this weekend. I'm Linda Tamim, and I thank you all for tuning in this afternoon. Take care.
سنة و3 أشهر محلة تغلط الوسطى